Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Vampyr on the GeForce GTX 750 Ti. For performance monitoring, I'll be using CAM. If you want to download the software, there's a link down in the description. So Vampyr, I'll be doing 1080p, 900p and 720p. To skip those sections of the video, check the description below. So first of all, I'll show you 1080p trying to be over 30 frames per second, which means I prioritize quality over performance. And for that I use pretty much high settings with post-process quality on ultra. That was enough to be over 30 frames per second with some stutters every now and then due to loading assets. I'll talk more about that later in the video. Then I just lower the settings to the minimum to see what frame rate we get. And also keep in mind on 1080p I overclocked the GTX 750 Ti, I added 200 MHz to the core and 400 MHz to the VRAM. Then on the other two resolutions, 900p and 720p, the overclock is disabled. Then on 900p and 720p I do exactly the same thing. I show you a configuration to be over 30 frames per second and then lower the settings trying to have more than 45 FPS. On 720p you'll need a better CPU in order to get better frame rates. That's why the game stutters so much, especially while targeting 60 frames per second. So keep that in mind. At least an i3-8100 or i5-7400 should be enough. That will make the game more stable when trying to get more than 50 frames per second. And now I'm going to talk to you about the options menu and my experience testing this game. This game was made using Unreal Engine 4, so you have the usual options in the options menu plus some extra stuff. Honestly, TXAA wasn't as big of a hit as I expected, so if you have some GPU power to spare, I recommend you use it. It might make the game look a little bit blurrier, but it hides the aliasing quite well compared to FXAA. Then if you want the easiest boost in performance, just lower FX quality from ultra to medium. That usually gives you the best performance boost of all of the options. And if you want a little more frames there, just lower post process to high, view distance to high and shadows to medium. Other than that, there's not much else that you can do to improve the frame rate significantly, so those are the options that I recommend lowering in the first place. That's it about the options menu. There is not much to discuss because between the highest and the lowest settings there is not a huge performance difference, and the visual difference isn't huge either. And well, about the performance, the game seems to be running quite well, but I found some things to talk about. First of all, it's capped at 62 frames per second. You can unlock the frame rate by just following the instructions down in the description, but I understand why the developers put that 62 FPS cap. It's for the game to feel more stable overall. And some things that I have to mention are that in the open areas of the game there are not a ton of them. For example, in the hospital area that I'm just benchmarking, when you go outside of the hospital and look into the hospital itself where all the detail is present, that's where I see the frame rate suffer. Even on higher end hardware, drops into the mid 40s, sometimes lower 50s. So it seems to be a thing with the game on how it loads different stuff. And there are also some sudden drops in the frame rate when you're just traveling through the map, especially the hospital. It just seems to be the game loading assets. So if you have something worse than an i3-8100 or Ryzen 3 1200, you can usually expect a little more stutter than shown in the video. And on some of my videos I tested the G4560, and on that one I noticed some extra stutter. As I was saying, it wasn't unplayable by any means, but sometimes while fighting you can get some stutters when you're being attacked. It's kinda random, but it can happen with 2 Core 4 thread CPUs. So yeah, I expect this game to run pretty well. So I recommend leaving the frame rate cap in place unless you have something better than an i3-8100. So just expect some fluctuations in the frame rate, especially in the bigger maps in the game, just very specific parts of the game. Other than that, it's very smooth, so there's not much of a problem with just combat. Performance there is quite nice. But yeah guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
Right. face, you ugly fucker! That's gotta hurt! You're mine, Burby! Grenade! Send you back in the fucking grave!
With you at our side, Doctor.
Over there! This one ain't burning! Run your leech, boys! I'll take its head! Die, leech! I hate leeches. I'll get you fucking up!
Daily routine. Steady, boys! One over here!
You'll pay for this!
Snap it, leech!
Die, leech! kill him.
Fuck, he's dead! Die! I'll put an end to you! Finish it!
To hell.
What is it? I'll catch you! Shoot it! All of you bloody leeches need killing!